Have you ever driven through a booming suburb and just seen new buildings popping up everywhere? Shiny apartments, sprawling new houses. It looks like progress, right? But what's really going on? Underneath all that growth, there's often a different story. One where the very people who built the community, who've lived there for years, suddenly can't afford to stay. So let's get into it. That's the big question here, isn't it? When a town starts booming, who really benefits? And more importantly, who gets left behind? We're going to break down this weird paradox where a town's success can actually create a massive crisis for the folks who've called it home for a long time. And to really get our heads around this, we're going to zoom in on one specific place, Garner, North Carolina. It's a really fast-growing town, and its story is basically a perfect snapshot of a challenge-facing suburbs all across the country. So yeah, on the surface, Garner looks like a total success story. But all that success has created this deep and honestly widening gap between the cost of living and what a lot of the established residents can actually afford. It's a hidden crisis happening right in plain sight. Okay, so to get really specific about this struggle, we've got to look at the numbers. But first, to really understand the problem, we need to get on the same page about a key term that you'll hear officials and housing experts use all the time. And that term is cost burdened. It's pretty simple, really. The rule of thumb is that if you're spending more than 30% of your income just to keep a roof over your head, you're in trouble. That leaves a lot less for everything else, food, gas, healthcare. It's basically a financial red line. And here's where that red line becomes a reality in Garner. We're talking about nearly 2,600 households, all of them earning less than $50,000 a year, and all of them are officially cost-burdened. Now, that's not just a statistic, right? That is thousands of families struggling to make ends meet in the community they helped build. So you might be thinking, what about affordable housing projects? Well, this is where you see the huge disconnect. The area median income, or AMI, for a family of four is over $122,000. So the affordable programs are aimed at families making around $98,000. But what about those 2,600 families we just talked about? The ones earning less than half of that. This shows a massive gap. The new affordable homes aren't actually being built for the people who need them the most. And this problem, it hits renters especially hard. Over a third of all households in Garner are renting. This is a group that's really vulnerable because they don't have home equity to fall back on when rents just keep climbing and climbing. Okay, so we've got a handle on what the problem is. But the big question is, why is it happening? Why is there such a huge mismatch between the kind of housing that's being built and the kind the community actually needs? Well, according to local developers, a huge part of the problem is the process itself. And this quote, wow, it's just staggering. 40%. That's how much of an apartment's cost comes from entitlement costs. That's all the stuff like zoning, permits, government approvals, all before a single shovel even hits the ground. And this isn't just an apartment thing. For single-family homes, regulatory costs still make up almost a quarter of the final price tag. When you have upfront costs that high, it means developers pretty much have to build more expensive housing just to make the numbers work. And this chart? This is the result. Over the last decade in Wake County, home values shot up 85%. Rents went up 74%. And during that same time, renter income, it only grew by 32%. There's just no way for wages to keep up with that kind of explosion in housing costs. So, when you put it all together, the result is, well, it's pretty predictable, isn't it? The market builds what makes financial sense, and that's housing for higher income households. This leaves the established community, the service workers, the young families, the seniors on a fixed income. They're left behind, not just struggling to find a place, but facing the very real possibility of being pushed out of the town they've always called home. But here's the good news. Garner isn't just sitting back and letting this happen. A local affordable housing task force has really dug into this problem, and they've come up with a real plan to try and fight back. And their plan, honestly, it's refreshingly direct. It really boils down to 3 key steps. First, fund the gap. Use public money and land to make affordable projects actually possible for developers to build. Second, educate the community. Get out there and talk to people, build support, and push back against that not in my backyard attitude that kills so many good projects. And third, and this is crucial, set annual targets. Make a real commitment, like creating or preserving 120 affordable units every single year. Now, this is why we're talking about Garner. Their story is so important because it isn't unique. Not at all.
These same pressures, fast growth, rising costs, are playing out in suburbs everywhere. What's happening in this one town in North Carolina could be a blueprint, for better or for worse, for countless other communities facing this exact same paradox.
So let's pull all this together. What are the big takeaways? 1. Rapid growth, even when it looks good on paper, can price people out. 2. The housing market, left to its own devices, often doesn't build what a community actually needs. But 3, and this is the hopeful part, local governments are not powerless. They have tools to do something about it. Because ultimately, this isn't just about buildings and zoning laws. It's about people. It's about who gets to stay and who gets to thrive in a place that's growing.
And that really leaves us with one final question to think about. The next time you see a new construction site in your area, just ask yourself, who is this really being built for? And is your town building a future that has room for everyone who already calls it home?